1. It was back in the 90s, and I'm not 100% certain how old I was at the time. I think this was when I was 5 or 6. One night, I noticed a fuzzy black creature crawling around the floor of my bedroom, no more than 3 feet above the ground. Just like many other people's experiences I've read, it was fuzzy, shadowy, and had no eyes. In my case, it was crawling around slowly. It seemed to resemble a person or gorilla, but seemed closer to the size of a large dog. This is where my experience seems to vary, along with the movement. I screamed, as any scared child might, and it scurried away about the time my mom opened the door and flipped on my light switch. That was the only sighting I had. Extra background. The house was a cottage-style home built in 1941 in one of the central neighborhoods in San Antonio, Texas. I don't know what the land was before, but I do know that a woman died of a lightning strike in the backyard. This may or may not be the same person whose ashes were in an urn buried in the backyard. My mom did not realize it was an urn at the time, washed it out because she thought it was a pretty vase, and it has moved with us many times since. I am convinced that the urn is not haunted, and that the creature is not a ghost. However, I am curious if anyone thinks the lightning strike victim may have some relation to the creature. I know some people theorize that shadows like this are interdimensional beings. I had never discussed this event with my mom. She just thought I was a kid who had a nightmare. A few minutes ago, when I asked if she remembered the night I woke her screaming, we actually figured out that she had seen the shadow as well. When she saw it, it was standing still for several minutes. Other than that, she described exactly the same fuzzy dark shadow without eyes. She did not feel anything ominous about the creature looking at her, and said that it was probably only about 4 feet tall, standing upright. I'm curious to hear other people's theories about this experience. 2. So my daughter turned 3 a few weeks ago, and like many kids, she received gifts. Her favorite of which was a big, nearly the same size as her, Triceratops stuffed animal, which she named Liz, after Miss Frizzle's familiar. She loves the Magic School Bus. She carried Liz everywhere, and insisted on bringing it to bed with her. I didn't particularly like the eyes on Liz, but that's a me problem, and my mom spent a lot on Liz. Anyways, my daughter has been an insomniac pretty much since conception. I've tried everything to help her sleep better at night, but to be honest, I should have named her Karma, 'cause everything I put my own mother through. Yeah, biting me in the ass through my girl. Her making up excuses for not sleeping is nothing new. However, her spontaneous, fake yet sympathetic crying is. When I asked what the issue was, she said, "Lizzie's crying," though she wouldn't tell me why. This went on for a few days, maybe a week. I thought about sending Liz back to my mom's house because I was getting seriously creeped out by those beady eyes and Liz crying every night. Then it became, "Lizzie's crying, all of them are crying," but still no elaboration on why any of her stuffies were crying. Then a few days after that, Lizzie's crying turned into something about Moggy or Bobby. I asked, who is Moggy or Bobby? They'd better back the hell off and let you sleep. But she just babbled on about Moggy. And when I say babble, I mean in that weird language only infants understand. She may be 3, but she still babbles at times. She has an appointment with an autism specialist to see if she's on the spectrum. This Moggy thing really freaked me out. A couple days later, I had her in timeout for throwing a tantrum over nothing, like many toddlers do, and I closed her door behind me, then went for a smoke. Hey, with an insomniac toddler, I can't quit that habit. It's in everybody's best interest I keep smoking. Anyways, I came back in after and washed my hands with the intent to let her out once my hands were clean. But she was already stepping through her door and saying, "Thank you," as if somebody opened it for her. "Who are you thanking?" I asked. "Babble babble Liz, babble babble Moggy." I really wanted to get rid of that effing dinosaur. A couple days after that, or maybe even the same night, my daughter soiled her bedtime diaper. While changing her into a fresh one, she started convulsing and making weird noises with her eyes and head rolling all over. I wasn't sure if she was simply acting like a maniac, or if she was possibly having a seizure, or if it was a possession. I snapped my fingers in front of her face while imagining a healing spark of light flashing, and said, "Demon begone." She stopped instantly, then tried snapping her own fingers. "Demon gone," she repeated. "Demon gone." Again, I don't know if this is simply the typical reaction of a toddler being distracted from freaky play. It very well could be. Thankfully, I am never going to know. She hasn't had a fake seizure before or since, though. Fast forward to this morning, yesterday morning. Technically yesterday, but I haven't been able to sleep yet. My mom came by and I told her I'm extremely tempted to get rid of Liz and about Moggy. This is the part that floors me. "Oh, she has a Moggy too," Mom replied. "What?" "Yeah, when you were little you had a Moggy. You'd bring your stuffed animals with you everywhere, even in the car. I hated it. You'd do something spiteful when you were mad at me, but you insisted I didn't do it. Moggy did." She said something else, I forget exactly what, but it ended with me, when I was a small child, telling her, "Moggy knows." My mom then paused for a moment, going over her memories. "Come to think of it, my cousin Sandra had a Moggy. So did one of my sisters. Oh geez, there's been a few with a Moggy. Huh, what are the odds your imaginary friends had the same name?" Mom, if we all had a Moggy, I don't think that was an imaginary friend. He's a spirit with some kind of attachment to our family. I'm wondering if he's one of our old ancestors or what the deal is. Also, I often hear indistinct conversation at night. Definitely not the neighbors. It happened even when we had over a month without neighbors. I live in the upstairs unit, and there's a downstairs unit. Just the two apartments in the old house. Usually when I strain my ears to hear better, it turns to the sound of the toilet rushing or something like that, so I brush it off. Last night, however, I finally caught it, playing auditory tricks on me, so I told it off. I heard a man's voice very clearly reply, "I'm sorry." I was freaked out by him, and annoyed with my fear, so I told it, "I don't care right now that you're sorry, but thank you. Just leave my daughter and my home alone." I don't know if that was Moggy or if it was another spirit in the house. In retrospect, I do feel bad for snapping when he apologized. But I'm afraid to apologize to him because I don't want to give whoever this thing is, any more power. He did stop after he said, "I'm sorry," though. Most spirits I encounter are respectful enough. I just don't trust the unseen, especially things that could possess me. Update. On the weekend, I thought about going to the laundromat to wash her Madeline-esque bedding she'd soiled, but wasn't feeling well, so I didn't go to the laundry until Tuesday. I couldn't find the bag of soiled bedding anywhere, and I looked everywhere quite a few times. So when I got in from doing the other laundry, I took a chance, stood outside my daughter's room and said, "Moggy, I don't know if you listen to adults or not, but if you can hear me, and you know where daughter's name, Madeline Bedding, is, please put it in a spot where I will find it by tomorrow morning." Then I started cleaning and putting away the laundry. Lo and behold, the bedding was clean and put away neatly in a drawer. My roommate doesn't remember me washing it. I don't remember washing it. Yet there it was, fresh and clean, even folded the way I do it. Sheets tucked away in the pillowcase, so everything is together while saving on space. So I absolutely did not do this. Anyways, clearly Moggy is a friend, and I made sure to thank him. 3. I have always loved learning about the paranormal. Don't get me wrong, I don't really believe in it, but it entertains me. In fact, if it wasn't for this one experience, then I wouldn't even entertain the thought that the paranormal existed. I never believed in God and have been an atheist for as long as I can remember. Ever since I was a kid, I have looked for the logic behind what people consider to be paranormal. It was a hobby for me, learning about the truth behind myths. But one day, I had an experience that I couldn't explain away. It's hard to explain away something that you see with your own eyes. I'm 22 now, and this happened when I was 15, and in the past 7 years I have tried to find a reason, anything that could explain what I saw. But I haven't been able to explain it away. Maybe someone here that reads this has a similar experience and could find the truth behind what happened that day. Okay, this happened back in 2010. I was in the living room with my best friend and my nephew. My best friend, Chevo, was helping me babysit my 5-year-old nephew. We were playing a Dragon Ball video game and my nephew was watching the action. To put it bluntly, I was getting destroyed. At around 6 in the afternoon, I had gotten tired of being beaten and ran to my room to get another video game. Single player, no more getting wrecked. And while I was looking for a game, I heard Chevo scream my name, "Rick!" When I heard him call out for me, I heard terror in his voice, and that chilled me to my core. Chevo was older than me and the closest thing to a brother I have ever had. I was a black belt, and he and I were constantly getting in trouble and fights at school. I had never seen him scared in all of the years that I knew him. So hearing his voice filled with fear frightened the hell out of me. My first thought was that something had happened to my nephew. I ran out of my room and ran down the hall towards the living room when I saw it. There was a thing running towards me. I was about 5'5" at the time, and this thing was a foot shorter than me, but the sight of it terrified. It looked like a kid, but it was black. No, I don't mean that it was African American. I mean that it literally was fully and completely black. It looked as though someone had fashioned a kid out of living shadows. He ran straight towards me, and I moved out of its way. And when he ran in front of me, I could see his features. Eyes, nose, ears, short black hair. Everything about him was black. He ran past me and straight down the hall, and I sprinted to the living room to make sure my nephew and friend were safe. When I got there, I saw my best friend, white with fear, holding my nephew. He saw me and said, "Please, tell me you saw that." I nodded, and I could see relief and fear in his face. I had seen the same thing that he had seen, so he hadn't imagined it. That was good. But it also meant that whatever that thing was, it was real. We turned on all the lights in the kitchen and living room, and instructed my nephew, who was terrified of everything that was happening, to not leave the living room while my best friend and I each grabbed a knife from the kitchen and began to walk down the hall towards the bathroom, which was down the hall where that thing was running to see if anything was there. We approached the bathroom, opened the door and found nothing. We did the same to every room in the house and found absolutely nothing. No windows were open, nothing was disturbed. We searched the apartment from top to bottom, but found nothing that could point us towards the shadow kid that we had seen. After having found nothing, we grabbed my nephew and barricaded ourselves in my bedroom until my parents arrived. When we were in there, I asked Chevo what happened from his point of view. According to him, while I was in my bedroom looking for another game, he had continued to play against a machine when he noticed my nephew looking at something other than the TV. He turned around and saw the kid just standing there in the living room. Not talking, not moving, just standing there. The sight of it scared him, so he screamed my name. The moment he screamed my name, the thing bolted down the hall, where I had my run-in with it. Neither he or I could figure out how it got in or out of the apartment. It simply appeared, then vanished. The first one to see it was my nephew, but he was too young to clearly articulate what he had seen. All we managed to get out of him was that he noticed the kid standing there and was curious about who he was. It's been 7 years and I still don't know what it was. And I know I didn't hallucinate because 2 other people saw the same thing I did. I know it didn't come through the doors because everything was closed and locked. And I have no idea how it could have left without disturbing anything. This is my experience. I have no idea what it was, and I can't explain it away. Has anyone else read or seen anything similar to this before? 4. I will start with a little bit of my history before I begin talking about my current experiences. My father is a medium and a psychic, and my mother has seen ghosts, or whatever you want to call them, and has prophetic dreams about people dying months or weeks before they happen. My sister and I have been seeing ghosts since we were children, but I don't remember much from my early childhood experiences. The first experience I can think of was seeing a shadow figure in my sister and my shared bedroom. We had electronic toys activate in the middle of the night on multiple occasions. After that, my next memories were in my teenage years. Once I was in the bathroom looking in the mirror. I saw something pass behind me in my mom's room that was blue. I thought it was my mom in her blue pajamas, but when I checked, she was still downstairs in her work clothes, watching television. My sister has said she has seen a tall blue figure in that house that was so tall that it ducked to go through her doorway. I also saw a small animal-like creature at my grandmother's that walked towards me in her living room. In my early 20s, I was going through being excommunicated from the church that I was going to at the time, and had 2 terrifying experiences within days of each other. In the first, I woke up and couldn't talk or move. A black, shadowy figure was sitting on my chest, and it tilted its head back and opened its mouth wider than humanly possible. It then proceeded to headbutt me. After that, I was able to move and I turned on the light. The figure was gone and I blessed the room with holy water. I started sleeping with the light on and a blessed rosary. A few nights later I woke up with 3 shadow figures on my bed. They were all between my legs, trying to enter my body through my vagina. I couldn't speak or move. I tried to muster up all of my will to just move a finger. I was finally able to move a finger, and then the rest of my body. I blessed the room and slept downstairs with the television on. I got married a few months later, and moved across country. I lived in New England for 3 years and would see things sporadically, but nothing reoccurring. I moved to New Orleans, where I currently live. This is where I had my first long-term haunting experience. At first, it seemed non-threatening, but now I am starting to doubt that. Not long after I moved, I went back to college, so I get home relatively early. One day after morning classes, I came home to make lunch. My kitchen is joined with the dining room and has a connection to the living room. As I was cooking, I see someone around the same size as my wife peek around the corner at me. I said, "You're home early." No one responded. I went out to the living room and no one was there. I texted my wife and she was still at work. At the time, it didn't seem menacing, so I brushed it off. The same thing happened sporadically, about 5 or 6 times, before things started escalating. One day I was home alone again and walking upstairs. I see a figure walk into the master bedroom. I went in and no one was there. A few days later I was cooking in the kitchen, and I heard what sounded like my wife's voice yelling my name in the living room. She was still at work and no one was there. Whatever it was interested in me. It knew my name, and it could mimic my wife. It was starting to scare me, but I was trying to ignore as much as I could with hopes it would stop. It always seemed to me as a kid, the more I engaged them, the more they showed up. One night, When I thought things were calming down, activity started again. My wife and I were laying down in bed, and I was holding her with my back to the doorway. I felt 2 fingers poke me hard between my shoulder blades twice. I woke my wife up and made her hold me the rest of the night. After this, I had made a friend in class who started staying over a lot. She informed me of several times she would be laying down on the futon and thought she felt my wife sit down on it. And several times the 2 of us would be cooking and we would hear footsteps, walk in and feel a presence behind us. One time this happened, I felt something graze my back. My friend was too far away to have done it. My friend and I started having bouts of sleep paralysis. When we have them, we see a black figure, sometimes humanoid, sometimes a creature with tentacles and green glowing eyes. After these started, I bought sage and started cleansing my house after each new experience. That is what has happened so far. The sage seems to help, but not stop it entirely. I don't know what else to do. I would ask my dad, but he would encourage me to engage it, and I am afraid that will make things worse. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. 5. Before I recount this story, I wanted to qualify some things. First, I admit that these trips were 10 and 12 years ago, and these stories come from memory. As such, I recognize the issues of memories being flawed, forgotten, or changed. Secondly, these stories provide zero evidence beyond anecdote. Any pictures referenced cannot be posted as 1. Some of them were only ever on a digital camera that an ex-girlfriend of 10 years ago has. 2. Some of the pictures are with my mom and I don't have access to them. And 3. I'm on my phone and simply don't have them. As such, I will only reference a couple of pictures as it would be irresponsible of me to say, I have a bunch of pictures, but then not be able to show them. So I will cut a bunch of that out. Finally, I wanted to say that while I am keenly interested in the paranormal, I do my best not to sacrifice a healthy level of skepticism. I think that is imperative. So note that these events that I recount are those that I am personally quite sure about as to their authenticity. However, I also recognize the possibility for making a mistake. I think that is one of the interesting things about the paranormal, though. While there is essentially nothing in the way of clinical, quantifiable evidence, the fact that there is such a mountain of anecdotal evidence requires 100% of them to be lying, mistaken, or having been hoaxed in order for these anecdotes to be false. That is a tall order in my opinion. Anyway, sorry for the long-windedness. Here are my stories. The first time I went to the Myrtles plantation was in the summer of 2005. I went with my mother, who was a skeptic at the time, and we booked the William Winters room for the night. We arrived around 8 p.m. and immediately took our belongings to the room. The way this wing of the house is set up is you have to enter that wing from the back porch. When you open the door, there is a little 4-foot by 4-foot opening with a small bedroom closet to the left and stairs immediately in front of you. Nothing else, just walls. Essentially, what I'm getting at here is that there is not access to the lower floor from this door. It's just a stairway up to the second floor. Once you reach the second floor, and round the half wall where there are 4 rooms and a couple of bathrooms on that floor, if memory serves me, as I was interested in the paranormal then as I am now, I decided to try and eliminate as many possibilities for mistakes. So I began taking an inventory on certain things as soon as we got there. For example, the door to the wing on the back porch locked automatically, and you had to have the key to open it up. When you did, it was loud and creaky with age, and made a loud click and thud when the door shut again. Also, that hall and our room was quite musty smelling, as many old houses are. I noted these things as well as the fact that we were the only ones in that wing of the house that night. The other folks staying at the plantation were in the Judge Clark Woodruff suite, a different wing, the caretaker's cottage, on the property but not part of the main house, a room on the bottom floor on a different wing, and in the rooms that were formerly part of the slave quarters. Different building, same property. When we got into our room, I immediately put pen to paper and took an inventory of our room. On the mantel was a porcelain figurine, a porcelain doll, creepy enough as it is, and another decorative glass item. I noted the position of everything in the room, and the other items like another doll on top of a boudoir, etc. Anyway, having put our stuff away, we went back downstairs and outside to meet and visit with our fellow vacationers. After a few minutes, we all decided to explore a little and take pictures. So my mom and I went upstairs to use the bathroom and get cameras. While my mom was using the bathroom, I was sitting on the bed, and a very floral, rose-like scent wafted by and began to fill the room, replacing the previously musty smell of age. I asked my mom if she smelled it, and she described the same. Around the same moment, as we were sniffing the air, the doll on the mantel began to play music. It was a wind-up doll. I need to interject here and say that were that to happen to me now, I would nope the hell out of there, but I guess I was braver or dumber in my youth. So obviously, when the music started playing, our heads jerked to the sound immediately, and noticed that draped across the doll on the mantel was about an 18-inch long white peacock feather. By the way, this is where most people call bullshit on my story, as that just seems too damn Hollywood creepy or whatever. But I kid you not, there it was. Again, I had taken an inventory of the room, and I'm certain that I would have noticed that beforehand. I also need to note that the staff of the Myrtles plantation leave around 8 p.m, so there was no one there to have been messing with us. Anyway, we were moderately freaked out, and decided to go downstairs with the cameras and explore and take pictures with the other folks. While some creepy things happened while we were doing so, I will not include them here as they are nebulous at best. In any case, as the night wound down, we all decided to go to our respective rooms around 3 a.m. and see what happens. For us, nothing happened for about an hour. Around 4 a.m. though, we heard incredibly distinct footsteps coming up the stairs. Now recall what I said earlier. No one else was staying in our wing, and could not get in without the key to that wing. And we did not hear the door open or shut, and we would have. Footsteps simply started at the bottom of the stairs, and came to the top, rounded the half wall and came to our door. I jumped out of bed and hit the floor to look under the door to see if I saw anything. I did, in fact, see 2 boots, which admittedly scared the hell out of me. I jumped back on the bed. We're both scared, and we just kind of sit waiting to see if it does anything. About 1 to 2 minutes pass. Then in the room next to us, which has a door leading into our room, we hear what sounds like a rubber ball hit the ground, bounce a little, then roll away, at which point we distinctly hear a little girl start crying. I want to mention again that all of these things were very distinct, not some muffled thing that could have been anything. Anyway, writing all of this down makes it seem like that night wasn't that big of a deal, but when we consider how rare an actual paranormal experience can be, it makes the several events of that night pretty intense. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 42. Thanks very much to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about my next 30 stories video. It's getting harder to put together because of the way things are with Reddit right now, but I'm going to start recording a few extra stories here and there, and I'll just file them away in a folder. I've already started to do that. I've got a couple there, and hopefully just over the next coming couple of months, I can build up and have that ready, and I'm not going to give you a date. I'm just going to make it a surprise upload for when it's ready. It will be the upload for that day since it's such a big video, but you won't see it coming. Okay, and with that I think I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.